Outlast Trials Season 7 has been out for almost a week now, and I personally think it's one of the best updates this game has had, and one of the big things that came with this update was Invasion 2.0. Now, I have been enjoying Invasion 2.0 a lot. I think the changes made to Imposter are amazing. The new gadget system, the way they rebalance a lot of the stuff with the reagents just make matches more fun, but that doesn't mean it is without its issues. The main one I want to tackle in this mostly short video is how they changed stabs. More specifically, the notion I've seen going around for the past few days, and I don't want to blame anybody who thought this because I thought this as well, that this stab mechanic is stupid because people on PC can just win with auto clickers.
This is dumb. This is really stupid. This is horrible. Every single update that they've made to this game, I love it so much, or I think that there's still room for improvement, but I can see the vision. This, I think, is the only time in this entire game's history that an update has come out and they changed something, and I'm like, this is objectively worse than it was before.
So I decided to test the gameplay out, check how it worked, and create a more informed opinion. To put everything into perspective, before in Invasion 1.0, the way you broke out of stabs was either with a brick or a bottle. The way it worked was that if the reagent was over half health, that means 2 bars, they would be able to break out and run away. If they were under 2 bars of health, it didn't matter if they had a brick or a bottle, they would instantly be killed by the stab. What Invasion 2.0 did was add a minigame where both sides have to mash to have a more favorable outcome, though the game doesn't do a very good job of explaining how the outcome is actually changed by the mashing. So here's what I did to find out. In the first test, I wanted to see what would happen if, in the middle of the struggle, the reagent never mashed and only the imposter did. And a very interesting thing you will notice is that very long delay that happens once I'm done with the whole life bar that the reagent has, and also the way the knife in the little display lights up. My next test was to see what would happen if the imposter didn't mash this time, and as you can see, the health bar remains up. I did mash a little at the end so you could see the green little health bar poking out at the right, but the reagent came out with full health as if I didn't even stab them in the first place. I then wanted to see what it would look like if the imposter mashed only a tiny bit but not enough to even remove half the health, and as you can see, the reagent is almost covering the little health he is losing and then remaining at full health right after the stab like the last time. To make sure I wasn't losing my mind, I then proceeded to test a normal mashing situation. I told my friend to mash as hard as he could, and I also mashed as hard as I could, and that's where I noticed it. The second I bring all of his health bars down, the knife lights up. But the second he also brings 2 of his green health bars up, his heart lights up, and then immediately the sequence ends. This is where I finally understood how the new stab mechanic works. The fact of the matter is, it's the same shit we had before, just without the bottles and the bricks. To explain it as simply as I can, when the mashing starts, the reagent and the imposter are not really fighting against each other, they're more trying to fill their quotas. The imposter is limited to 4 bars. The imposter's objective is to mash until 4 red bars of health are down, while the reagent is trying to mash to bring 2 bars of health up. That is the hard limit. It doesn't matter how hard you mash, it also does not matter how slow you mash as long as you reach that limit. The game is also pretty generous with this too. If you bring your mind back to the before test where the reagent didn't mash at all, you can see how there is even a little delay even though the reagent is not mashing at all, where I cannot bring down any more health because my knife is already lit up, but the game is still letting the reagent have a chance to even mash, to even give himself an ounce of health so that he can survive the encounter. So would an auto clicker help? Of course, nobody wants to have to mash constantly, but realistically it wouldn't help you win anything you wouldn't already have won. If you can mash even decently, you will always win the encounter if you have enough health. Meanwhile, if you don't have enough health, you will practically always lose. The auto clicker is a non-factor. Just to prove my theory, I went ahead and did multiple different stab scenarios with multiple different health numbers to check how it would go, and these all confirmed how I thought. In this stab, the reagent has 3 bars of health, which I quickly bring down. His little bar of green health is going up, but as you can see, I'm kind of like fighting it down, as it would technically be my 4th bar of health I can drain. And as soon as my knife lights up, that means I have reached my limit of 4 bars, which lets the reagent heal his last bar, leaving him with 25 HP or 1 bar of health. In this one, we tested 1 bar of health on the reagent, and as you can see, it's about what you would expect. As soon as the stab starts, I quickly bring down that bar of health, and then his green bar is trying to go up as I mash it down because I still have 3 bars left of damage that I can deal during the mash, which obviously instantly kills the reagent. When I saw all of these outcomes, I was ready to call this thing a done deal. Basically, the way it works is that the reagent can heal 2 bars and the imposter can take out 4, meaning if the reagent is at any time over half health, they would always survive the encounter, but alternatively, if they were at half or below health, they would basically die every time. Exactly the same as it worked before with bricks and bottles, just that now you didn't have to use those bricks and bottles. So this whole notion of, oh, the stabs before were better because you could survive more, or however you wanted to spin it, isn't really true. Though I don't want to blame anybody for believing that, because I also believe that due to the game not explaining it very well. There is, however, one factor I hadn't checked at the time, and that was the AMP evasive maneuver, which I wasn't sure if it would give you more health as a reagent to heal, or how exactly it would work, so I went ahead and tested that too. The way I did this one is that I did not mash until all of my health bars were down, and then I mashed really quickly. And as you can see, literally nothing changed. As far as I can tell, evasive maneuvers, all that it does is that it makes it so that when you are refilling that health, it just goes up quicker. Just to make sure I wasn't crazy, I simulated a real-time mashing event and the results were the same. The only thing you notice as of a difference is that before the imposter brings all of my red health down, all of my green health is already up, because that is all evasive maneuver does. Here, I tested how the stab would play out if I had exactly half my health, and as you can see, evasive maneuver doesn't do shit. The imposter quickly takes down 2 bars I initially have, and then just as fast takes down the extra 2 green bars I would heal, because like I mentioned, imposter can take down 4 bars, reagent can only heal 2. Just to show you how much of a fixed outcome these mash events are, I'm gonna show you this real match example, where before the stab, I just had like 52 health, like a pixel above half, and after the stab, I literally left out with exactly that. So in conclusion, it works exactly as it did before. As long as you're over half health, you will always live, and as long as you're below half health, you will always die. I guess the only exception would be a health boost, but it's the same logic. If you have anything less than 2 bars, dead. Anything above that, you're alive. The question that is left to ask is, if the result is the same as before, why even change it in the first place? In my eyes, there are 2 main reasons. The first reason is to make stabs more effective across all difficulties. In case you don't know, aside from the normal invasion playlist, there are global invasions, which is when you play a normal trial but you make it so that people can invade you. Now obviously, since you're playing a normal trial, that means you can choose the difficulty. And before, with the system that was in place, depending on the difficulty you chose, it would change a lot how the invasion match would play out. If you chose something like standard or introductory, there would be a shit ton of bricks and bottles you could constantly use to get out of stabs, which would be quite frustrating for the imposter in a lot of situations. Whereas if you chose something like psychosurgery, where you get maybe 3 bricks and a fuck you from a bottle, you wouldn't really be able to break out of stabs more often, and it would be extremely imposter-sided. With this new system, you get more or less the same result, but it is not dictated by the difficulty. The other reason that could maybe be the case would be that this is a bit more beginner-friendly, I guess you could say. The reason being, a lot of new players are not really acquainted with how to get items around the map, and also aren't as aware of where bottles and bricks might be. So it would definitely be frustrating if you just started playing the game and you can't even defend yourself from stabs because you can't find the item you need. Now you can defend yourself more consistently, and it would probably feel a lot easier and more fair for those players. And while again, there are very real and honestly fair reasons to change how the stabs worked before, I still think the option and the solution that they came up with is insanely boring. Mashing is one of the most boring things of all time, especially when there is clearly no challenge involved in it. They want you to have the same exact fixed outcome every time you stab someone. So, How would I fix this? Well, in my opinion, it is a thin line because you can't change it too much and make it too minigame based to the point where new players basically cannot defend themselves and really experienced players will almost never die to a stab or always die to a stab, you know what I mean? So in my eyes, this is what I came up with, and I don't know if it would be perfectly balanced for both sides. Leave your opinion in the comments. Maybe you can tweak this however you want. You know, discuss everything in the comments. I always respond. Anyways, this is what I came up with. When the stab animation starts, instead of mashing, we are not going to have that. That is getting taken away. We are going to have the arm wrestling minigame. But here's how it's going to work. Every single QuickTime event will only have 3 bars, going from yellow to orange to red. There are going to be 4 QuickTime events of these, and both the imposter and the reagent are going to take their chances. Depending on how good each skill check was for each side, and basically who got more reds or who got more yellows, or, you know, it will be like a token system where reds are obviously valued more than yellows and stuff like that, and the reds would be the smaller skill checks. Whoever had the most points at the end of that encounter will change the outcome after the stab sequence ends, and in my eyes, these are the 3 possible outcomes. If the reagent got a lot more good skill checks over the imposter, they would receive 1.5 bars of normal damage, you know, as if they were just hit, but also half a bar of recoverable damage. Think of this kind of like gray health in fighting games or something like that, where after the stab ends, the reagent can run away, and if they don't take damage for 30 seconds, that half a bar of recoverable health will recover. And also, if you know, if they have the prescription to recover health, after 30 more seconds, they would get that bar fully back if they didn't take damage during that whole period. If they are both tied, then I think it should just be the normal outcome of, you know, the reagent losing 2 bars and the imposter staying how it is. If the imposter, however, gets a lot of good skill checks over the reagent, I think the reagent should take 2.5 bars of damage. That extra half a bar should be bleeding, but very slow bleeding, mind you. And additionally, depending on which side wins, I think they should also get a secondary effect aside from, you know, the health changes. You know, if the imposter wins the side, he will get his stamina refilled after the stab. And if the reagent wins the stab, after they get their recoverable health, they also get a tiny speed boost so they can make more distance from the imposter. The other factor we have to address when it comes to this potential, you know, stab rework would be evasive maneuver. And I went kind of crazy with this one. I don't think it's too broken, but I don't know, let me know. So, evasive maneuver would have 2 different versions. If the stab would not kill the reagent, the way it would work is that, you know, aside from the 4 skill checks you would get, there would be a 5th one that only the reagent would get that would help the reagent skew the matchup into his favor. However, it would be worth half of what the normal skill checks would be worth. Just to put it into perspective, this is how I view the skill checks being valued. I don't know about you, this is how I would personally, you know, try to rank them and see how much they're worth in between the individual exchanges. Obviously, once the exchange is over, the game itself would do the math and choose who has the most tokens at the end and choose who wins. To make it clear though, I don't want to make this a cop-out for reagents. If the reagent has less than 2 tokens before getting stabbed, winning the encounter won't really do much. The only thing I would make it is that if they have less than 2 bars of health and they win the skill checks, they would maybe break out of the stab, but they would still die, only slowing the imposter down a little bit, maybe making him exhausted. I feel like that's a bit more balanced, just so that the reagents can't get out every time they're about to die, unless they have evasive maneuver. Now this is gonna sound stupid, but hear me out, hear me out. If the reagent has evasive maneuver, once the 4 skill checks are done, if they had less than 2 health, a kind of adrenaline state will begin, where 3 really fast white skill checks will start going around, you know, just really quick skill checks, the ones you get in arm wrestling once you get a bunch of skill checks going. And if the reagent is able to hit all 3 of these, they will break out of the stab animation, stun the imposter for a little bit, and only have half a health bar. The way I would balance it is by making it so that they can only attempt this once per life. So if while these white skill checks are going around, the imposter gets kicked and they get thrown to the ground, you know, because they're dead, they wouldn't be able to attempt it again unless they died and revived somehow. And additionally, if they are successful and they hit the 3 skill checks, they would not be able to attempt this or do this for the rest of the trial. Now, I know how this sounds, and it does sound kind of crazy, but oh my god, wouldn't it be so fun? Additionally, there's like, if somehow a Red Barrels dev watches this and you decide to take notes or something, this isn't really necessary. This is more something I would like to add. I would like to overall spice up the struggle animation, because maybe this is a nitpick, maybe this is just me, but when they first announced we were gonna get a struggle minigame, I expected it to be a lot more interesting looking, since, you know, it was also teased in the documents that, you know, reagents were gonna get better hand-to-hand combat training and stuff like that. So in my head, I expected the struggle animation to look something like this. I know this is a bit ridiculous, and obviously the reagent wouldn't have a knife, but you get the idea. They're both kind of like actually struggling and fighting, you know, it's like a back and forth instead of it just being, you know, just holding a knife in your gut until you either punch or die. I feel like that would be a lot more interesting, especially considering how Red Barrels always does such good mocap animations, and all the like executions and grab animations in this game are so smooth and sexy. I can just imagine how cool this would look in the middle of a trial, you know, the imposter and the reagent actually duking it out. And additionally, during the like adrenaline state I mentioned earlier, you could crank like you could add a special animation where it just gets cranked up to 11 and it looks like this, which I know this is a bit ridiculous and exaggerated, but just think about it. Wouldn't this be the coolest shit ever? Again, this is completely optional, and in my opinion, it would just be like a cherry on top, but this is how I would view actually reworking the stab mechanics into a more fun and interesting, you know, gimmick. Overall, I think Invasion 2.0 is a success. Again, like I mentioned before, it's way more fun as an imposter. As a reagent, I actually think the only problem while playing reagent is solo invasions, because invasions with my friend or randoms have actually been really fun because it feels more balanced around that. But when it comes to solo invasions, man, Red Barrels, you have to change something. The fact that the imposter can be out for 5 minutes and only be out for around 30 means that most of the playstyle when it comes to solo invasions are legitimately just camping the objective. Last night I had an invasions match where I played as reagent and it lasted 50 minutes. It was get out the vote, and I actually got out without dying once, but the imposter was playing in such a way where it was practically impossible for me to do anything without them just being in a corner waiting for me with a stab, me having to run them around, going back, and then just doing the same cycle over and over again. It was a very lame way of playing the game, and honestly, I think there should be a tweak around it. Maybe make it so that in solo invasions, when the imposter has to go, he actually lasts longer outside of the game, or make it so that, and also make it so that whenever the imposter retreats, the reagent gets notified. Because when it comes to solo, dude, it is just miserable. Outside of that, I think Invasion 2.0 is a complete success, and if they just keep at it like this and, you know, rework the stab, make it more interesting, this could really be just one of the greatest modes of all time. So yeah, Red Barrels, love your work, you did great. Check out Topia Inc.'s channel. And yeah, this was way longer than I thought it would be. Thanks for watching if you did. I appreciate every single one of you who stops to watch these videos. I put a lot of effort into them, and yeah, I hope you all have amazing days, nights, or whatever it is. I love you all.